Hello everyone. In this lecture, we discuss about the topic of credit risk. And credit risk is one of the important type of the risk, and it can be defined as the possibility of loss resulting from a borrower's failures to repay their loans. Or in other words, we can say that in credit risk, actually measure how much is the probability that borrower will be unable to pay their loans. So there are different factors which affect the credit risk. So first of all, I'll discuss about some qualitative factors. So in this lecture, I'll assume myself as a banker, and on the other hand, I have one customer who want to take a loan. And in this scenario, I'll discuss about the credit risk of this customer. As a banker, when I'm going to when I'm going to calculate the credit risk of my customer, then first of all I'll see the collateral of the my customer. If customer is providing a collateral with a good market value, it's mean that the credit risk will be lower. So it means that whenever there is a high collateral, then probability of default will be lower and credit risk will be lower. So collateral is one of the important factor which affect the credit risk. Second is the debt ratio. I'll see to my customer that whether this customer has taken a loan already taken a loan from any other bank or our bank, or in other sense I will see that how much is the debt ratio of this customer. If this customer is a company, so I'll see the debt ratio of this company. How much is the debt ratio of this company? If debt ratio is higher, then there will be a probability that in future this company will not be able to pay their in loan plus interest payments. So if debt ratio is lower, if current debt ratio is lower, so as a banker, I can expect that this company has a capacity to pay their loans and interest payments in future. So we can say that whenever there is a high debt ratio, then credit risk will be higher. So when debt ratios are lower, then the credit risk will be lower, probability of default will be lower. And third is the volatility of the earnings. At third stage, as a banker, I'll see the financial statements of my customer. As I earlier mentioned that if my customer is one company, so I'll see the volatility in their earnings. If volatility is so much higher, in some years earnings are higher, in some years lower, so it means that volatility is higher. And if any of the company has a constant earnings, so it means that their volatility is lower. So if any of the company has a higher volatility of the earnings, it means that this company is risky. It is a possibility that in future their profits will be decreased and they will not be able to pay their loans, because some years their profits are much higher, and some years their profits are lower. So if volatility of the earnings is higher, so then credit risk will be higher and probability of default will be higher. And if volatility of the earnings will be lower and company has a smooth earnings, so then there will be less probability of the credit risk. Then the credit risk will be lower and probability of default will also be lower. And next I'll see about the reputation of my customer, past reputation. So as a banker, uh, I'll 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 see the reputation of my customer. In Pakistan, for a reputation, as a banker, we can take a record from a state bank about the past loan history of the customer. Through their past loan history of the customer, we can judge that whether this customer was paying on time in past or not. Through this, we can judge their. I can judge my customer's reputation. If his history is good with respect to payments on due dates, so it means that there is a probability that in future this customer will pay on time. So if reputation of the customer is good, then credit risk will be lower. So as well as the probability of default will be lower. So reputation also matters. And sometimes as a banker, I can ask about the reputation of the customer with from their friends, from their uh, from their competitor. if my customer is one of the company, so I can ask from their suppliers, from their distributors about their payment patterns to check about the to uh, to know about the reputation of this company. So if reputation is good with respect to their past payments, so their credit risk will be lower and probability of default will also be lower. And last is the business performance. As a banker, I'll take the financial statements of my customer, which is a company, and then I use these financial statements to to see the business performance of this company. If this company has a good perform, if this company is performing good in past years, then there we can expect that it will perform good in future as well. So if business performance is good, so credit risk will be lower. So if business performance, past business performance is not good, so we can say that credit risk is higher while granting a loan to the customer. So these are some factors which affect the credit risk or probability of default. So there are different models through which we can quantify the probability of risk, through which we can quantify the credit risk of the company, of the banks. So I have written here some of them, some of these models. So our first model is the linear probability model, and the second is Z-score model, Altman Z-score model, and there are many other advanced credit risk models through which we can measure the credit risk or probability of default for the customers. So in this lecture, we just discuss about the definition, some factors that affect the credit risk, and quantitative models of measuring the to measure the credit risk. So in next lecture, we will calculate the Z-score, and through Z-score we can quantify the bankruptcy risk or credit risk of the company. So let's meet in next video.